Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Coming up on the Payoff, pro golfer Charlie Beljan. He won a PGA Tour event. He was the U.S. Amateur Champion. You know who else won that? Tiger Woods and so many other Jack Nicklaus esteemed golfers of that ilk. I love using the word ilk. And Charlie is worth mentioning when you say the word ilk, especially now when you talk about his sobriety. He's been sober for almost 3.5 years, and the dude is on fire. He has a unique experience, almost unlike any other, because of his strength and talent in the world of golf and his accomplishments, and also what he's accomplished in sobriety. He's an open book. We talk about his life. We talk about sobriety. We talk about golf and the pressures he faced and his anxiety on the tour, melting down almost, winning a PGA Tour event. And also, we talk about live golf and PGA golf at the end. It's super interesting if you're a golfer or a golf fan. So you're going to want to stay for the whole bit. But Charlie Beljan is awesome, and he is coming up next. But first, Kevin Souza. All right, so Charlie, you're in Phoenix right now or Mesa?
Mesa.
Okay, so you grew up in Mesa, and
yeah.
You had that was being a golfer at a young age. I would imagine there's like a drinking culture there, but growing up as a kid, give us a window into what it was like to be a young guy growing up in Mesa, Arizona, in your house.
You know what? It was extraordinary, man. I had two great parents. We were a member of the country club, but we were barely a member of a country club. I mean, we were scraping by to pay the monthly dues so I could play golf. So it wasn't quite the country club lifestyle. Obviously perfect weather down here, but man, I ran across tough times early. I was in sixth grade when I told my mom that I thought my dad was having an affair. She ended up finding out he was, and then a week later, her dad died, and my mom became a massive alcoholic, drinking 7 to 8 bottles of wine a day, starting at lunch. Her and I fought. We hated each other, and I said I'd never be like her, and then I fell right down that same path, man. But overall, Arizona, if you're a golfer, it's great. In my opinion, if you want to get good at golf, don't come to Arizona because the conditions are too perfect. The grass is perfect. You don't learn to play in any wind. But I got a lot of great people here. I'm big into the outdoors and the mountains and stuff like that, and so I don't got to go far to get them. And I like the dry heat versus that humidity. So I'm not too worried about the 110s, 115s here.
Your mom being an alcoholic, was it in her family? Like anything you're aware of now, like her parents or anything like that?
No, none of them, man. She caught the bug and then passed it to me. My sister's no problem at all. But no, going back prior to my mom, we don't have anything. She just kind of picked it up and I followed suit, unfortunately.
It's worth noting too, your mom, right? What's she, like 23 years sober or something like that?
My mom, yeah, she just celebrated. I always get either her 23rd or 24th back in January. Yeah. And amazing. We went from, she wouldn't do anything for me, I wouldn't do anything for her, to now the bond that we have is just absolutely incredible, man. But seeing, I remember being 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade. She didn't get sober until I was about a senior in high school, maybe. But I remember every night, man, she'd pass out. I'd take that wine glass out of her hand before it fell and hit the ground. And I mean, those are the memories I have of being a kid for sure. And my dad, he had a couple beers like anybody else, but I can't even remember ever seeing my dad, with catching a good buzz or anything like that. But that's because my mom was too busy doing it all.
So obviously there was a little bit of trouble in the relationship. There was an affair you mentioned, but they stayed together?
They fought it out until they separated my junior year of high school. And that's kind of when I really started down the path of drinking. I ran away from home. Luckily I was good at golf. Luckily I had a couple older guys by the name of Steve Dallas, who owns a bunch of golf courses here in Arizona, that was kind of my mentor. My folks didn't have any money to send me on these tournaments, so I was going to go to Mesa Community College. This guy gives me a couple bucks to go play in a few tournaments. I go to Junior World. I finish like 15th, and then I go win the USGA Junior Amateur, and then I had my pick of any school. And then here's the problem: is now I went from a nobody to a somebody with a drinking problem, and then everything just escalated. And I got into it pretty heavy, like at 16, until I gave it up at 35. At 35-ish.
All right, let's go backwards, because you and I were talking before this, and you said you used to be a selfish asshole, and now here you are. You're charitable with your time. You're charitable with things you do for other people. You're also pretty humble. You just you gloss right over winning that amateur in, what was that, 2000 and what year was that? 2002. That's a huge deal. Knowing just a little bit about golf that I know, it's a huge deal to play in it and to win it. Give us some other champions that went before you.
Well, I mean, Tiger Woods, David Duval, Jack Nicklaus. I mean, the who's who is on that trophy. I mean, now you got Scotty Scheffler. The who's who have won that golf tournament. And I would still say, yeah, I've won on the PGA Tour, but winning that U.S. Junior Amateur and being a nobody to having any pick of any school I wanted to go to on a full ride, that really is what propelled my career. I don't, if you ask a hardcore USGA guy, he'd say I have a major under my belt. I don't technically believe that I have a major, but to be a USGA champion, to get invited every year to the champions dinner, stuff like that, it's pretty darn cool. And the fact that it happened 22 years ago, and still when you get around golf buffs and guys in the section and that are deep in golf, man, all they want to ask and know is how I did it. And when I did it, I set the record for the most holes that it took to win the US Junior. It's 36 holes of stroke play. I made an 80-footer on the 36th hole to even get into the match play. I was the 60th seed, and then I just made my way down the ranks. In the semis, I knocked off a guy named Brian Harman that won the British Open last year and is having a heck of a career and a great human being. So it's you can see it brings a smile to my face. That tournament probably still means the most to me.
Hey, Zach, do me a favor. Turn Charlie down just a tiny bit. Charlie, you're fine. It's just these headphones,
okay.
So you're good.
Okay, cool.
So you win that tournament. What does that do for your life? I'll go back and talk about how you ended up the first time drinking and stuff. But was there an amount of like a ton of pressure that was mounted on you, because you go to New Mexico, which is not. I'm sure you could have gone further away or different places, but you were a little anxious about flying, so you stayed close to home. And was there a lot of pressure around that decision and around what happens to a young man when he wins a major like that?
I didn't really feel any pressure. I was overwhelmed for sure, because I went from no college coaches contacting me to, the list was incredible of every coach wanting to fly out and have dinner. I originally always wanted to be a Florida Gator. That was a 5-hour plane flight. I really wanted to be a Wildcat down to the University of Arizona, but Coach LaRose came over and he called me his hush puppy like 6 or 7 times at dinner. And I'm like, dude, I'm nobody's hush puppy. That's what I get at like Long John Silver's, And so that wasn't it. And so Glenn Milliken, who just left New Mexico to go to the SEC over at Missouri, he had me in. He was the only coach that followed me for all 6 matches. So I figured I at least owed it to him. He put in the time and the effort and watched me and kept moving his flight as I kept winning. So I at least owed it to coach to fly out to New Mexico, check out their school. They showed me one heck of a time on a recruiting trip. And then their facilities were top notch. At the time they were 4th or 5th best in the country, behind only the likes of big money schools, A&M, Oklahoma State, stuff like that. And then it gave me a chance in the springtime. It blows 40 miles an hour every day. They've got dormant grass. So I learned how to play in some weather and some tough conditions. And then I fought a lot of back problems. Coach Milliken always took care of me, paid for a trainer to go on the road for us. Going to the University of New Mexico was the best decision I ever made. I almost left after my first year, because it was, being an Arizona boy, it was a little cold in Albuquerque. We could still play golf. But Albuquerque was like 10 years behind the rest of society, man. And so that wasn't really my jam, but I hung in there. I toughed it out. I'm a huge supporter of the Lobo team. They got a new coach, Jake Harrington. He's crushing it this year. I stay in contact. I get back to Albuquerque all the time, but their facilities over there, and with the money that they have, they go to the national championship every year. They put together a heck of a team, man. And I'm proud to be a Lobo for sure.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, and it does get way colder out there than people think. I've been out there for a football game. In September, if you catch the wind right and the sun goes down, you can be in trouble.
Over.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wind worst.
So you grew up, obviously in Phoenix, but your grandpa was in Houston, and you used to go and see him, and that's when your career in golf really sort of took flight. What was that like going out there with him for summers?
Yeah, my parents shipped me out to Houston for the summers, which that humidity was brutal. My grandfather owned a warehouse that shipped all the candy and stuff to movie theaters. So what a great job. I went and ate candy all day. And then when we went home, we got in the golf cart. We went and played golf. And he was a scratch golfer. He's the one that, taught me the game, that really got me interested in the game. And I got great memories. His golf course had tons of alligators on it. So we go feed the gators at night in between. And it was just wonderful heading out to Houston. I still got family and friends out in Houston, so I get out there a little bit. But yeah, it was great cruising out there, and that's where I kind of learned the game at Quail Valley down there in Richmond, I think it was Richmond, Houston. But yeah, I dig it. I don't go back in the summers now, though. I'll tell you that.
So you got good at golf. When did you get good at drinking? Like right around. I imagine you were already playing golf and you were a pretty good golfer because you probably started to play a lot in high school, right?
Yeah, I started to play. I started playing a lot like in sixth grade, but really didn't take it serious until I started hanging out with the older guys and gotten sick and tired of getting my head beat in. So I wanted to play with the older guys and beat them. But then also playing with the older guys, here I am, a 12 or 13, 14-year-old kid hanging out with the 17 or 18-year-olds that when they're not on the course, they're partying and doing things, but they wanted me along because I was, in the top 5 in the high school team doing that kind of stuff. And, not that I fell down their trap. I fell down the trap that is society and life as we know it today with alcohol. It's like if you're not doing it, there's something wrong with you, which I just find so funny. Yeah. But I started early, man. I was 14. I was in 8th grade. I can remember I was in 8th grade when I drank too much and had my first throw up and my first hangover. And unfortunately that didn't stop me. I got really good at it and carried it on. To the point in college, we were cranking, showing up to workouts, hungover or coming from a party or a casino and going to workouts at 5:30 a.m. And unfortunately, I'd gotten good enough at it by then that, I could function and do that stuff and get away with it. And then, got through college. Then came to the mini tours here on the Gateway in Arizona, which it was the greatest gig ever. If it came back, that's the only thing I would do. You played with 3 of your buddies. You played a practice round. You played 3 days of a tournament. The winner was making $35,000. I was putting a couple $100,000 in my pocket for 3 days of work, playing with my friends, having barbecues and drinking beers the other 4 days of the week. It was the greatest thing ever. Then all of a sudden I kept getting a little bit better. I get to the tour. Really struggle my rookie season. I'm a loner. I wasn't on the Korn Ferry tour back then, the nationwide tour. So I went from the barbecue tour to the big show with no friends. So I started to, self-medicate in the hotel room at night. Then all of a sudden you're getting invited to these parties and you can't say no because one, it's a PGA Tour party. They throw some pretty good parties with some pretty good perks. And just one thing led to another, man, to the point where I was shooting airplane bottles while I was playing to try to, subside the anxiety a little bit. Ended up having to take a break from the tour for mental health because my anxiety got so bad that I couldn't turn the door handle to leave my hotel. Had to have my caddy come and open the door for me in Houston, of all places. Took a break. Then I take a break from the tour. Well, if you go on disability from the tour, they pay you monthly, tax-free, based on how much money you've made. So now I'm sitting at home, moved into a new house, inviting everybody over. The tour's paying me $20,000 a month, tax-free. I'm like, well, this is the greatest gig I've got going. And the snowball kept getting bigger and bigger and going faster and faster downhill, man. And to the end point for me, I was the guy that I would fill a water bottle full of Bacardi. I would fill a water bottle full of Diet Coke, put it in my checked bag. When I got to the airport and down to the baggage claim, they waited for you with your courtesy car. You signed your courtesy car. They brought it right up. One of the best perks of the tour, that they bring your car right to the deal. You don't got to deal with rental. And I would also pack a solo cup, and I would get in that courtesy car. And before I even left the airport, man, I had a mixed drink going to wherever I was going, because traveling was such a stressful time for me that I just couldn't wait to get in that car and pour that drink and have it hit my lips, man. And if that doesn't tell you enough about how deep I was, and then it just got deeper and deeper and deeper, and to the point where that was the most important thing to me, man. I was scheduling. I got divorced when my son was 1. I was scheduling when I would get my son based around when I was going to have parties, when the big football games were, because I was responsible when I had my boy, because I didn't want to be that parent, but I unfortunately was planning the time I was going to spend around my son and the time I could party, and trying not to mix them. And finally I was playing the Sedona Open up about 2 hours north of Phoenix, here up in the beautiful Red Rocks. I hit 18 greens. I had 13 three putts because my hands were shaking so bad. And then I got home, and my wife, she looked at me and said, "Listen, we've been together all these years. When I first met you, I knew what I was getting into. I knew it was a party scene." She was a 1-day-a-week drinker. I turned her into a 6-day-a-week drinker just to be able to tolerate me. And she said, I don't want to tell you can't drink anymore. I don't want to make you choose between you and me. And I looked right at her and I said, you know what? I'm never going to have a drink again. And I had said that a million times over the last decade, but I'm kind of the guy that has the on or off switch. This July, I hadn't smoked a cigarette in 8 years. I'm sitting on the driving range at the Greenbrier in West Virginia, and I've got this terrible cough going, man. And I'm smoking a cigarette, and Tom Watson's hitting balls next to me, and he turns around and he goes, "Do you think that cough would get a little bit better if you stopped smoking those cigarettes?" And I looked at my caddy. My caddy looked at me, and I said, "You know what, Mr. Watson?" I said, "I'm never going to smoke another cigarette again." And I thought my caddy was going to pee his pants, because depending on the day, I could have 1 pack or I could have 3 packs, just depending on how the day went, how the night went. And I've never had another cigarette since, man. So I'm either all in or I'm all out. And unfortunately for the booze part, it just took me a lot longer to get there, because I didn't know how I was going to go to these dinners or these functions or any of that without having a buzz, because I hadn't done it since I was 16.
Yeah.
So then when I finally got sober, man, I was a super social person. I'm now back to that super social person. But for like a year or two, man, I really struggled to go out, because it's hard when everybody has the buzz and you don't have a buzz. So now I'm the guy that if the party starts at 5:30, I show up at 5:15. And my rule is once you tell me the same story twice, that's my cue to get out of there, So that's just kind of how I roll now. My wife still occasionally, she has a couple drinks 1 night a week. I have no issue with that. I go out with my buddies 3 or 4 nights a week. We play a late 9 holes. They all have a few beers. I have no problem with that. I got no problem being around it. Nothing like that. But it's just, I can't control it. Therefore, I just don't do it anymore.
What do you say to the guy who listens to this, or the woman who listens to this, like, that plays golf? I mean, I played football and basketball, and when I got done, you didn't step into the locker room and have cold beers like right there. I mean, yeah. It's a part of the culture in sports, but in golf, it's right there. That's a part of when you're done, you drink beer. At least like that's the impression I get. How deeply ingrained in the culture is it?
I would say that it's everything. People call it swing juice. I would say the majority of my buddies have a shot of Fireball or whatever they do before they get going. I've started teaching some lessons now, and these people, they come to me and I almost feel like they need to have a drink to take a lesson, because they're so amped up, because they tell me that they drink during the whole round. I've got buddies that used to really enjoy the game, that now after they saw how I changed my life, they've got sober. They don't even play golf anymore because it's not enjoyable, because they can't drink, and which I totally get. Yeah. You're outside with your buddies, listening to some music, having a cigar, and if you can't catch that little buzz, it's just not the same. But I'll tell you what, man, once you get over that hump, and I mentor like 30 people right now. I share my story to try to help people. And I've got so many people that, they make it a week and then their body starts to hurt and they're going, and I'm like, dude, you're right there, man. If you just get past this, you don't even know how good life is going to be. And I'm not talking to the people that can control it, that can have 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, right before I quit, I was having a fifth of Bacardi and probably 15 to 20 beers a day. I mean, I was cranking, man. So I'm talking to those kind of people that need it for everything. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going out, having a few beers, but just like you said, the other day I'm driving home on the golf course. I passed a couple groups. I said, gosh, what a beautiful sunset. And everybody replied back to me, it'd be better if we had a cocktail. It's just so ingrained in our culture and our community, and especially in the golf world, that it makes it really hard to still be able to enjoy golf if you were a drinker and now you're trying not to, because like 99% of the people drink when they play, and they absolutely go in and drink and get smashed when they're done playing, because you go settle your bets, you catch up, you tell some stories about some shots you hit, some birdies you made, some doubles you made. And that's just part of it, man. And that's what I thought it was up until, 40 months ago, is that's what I thought it was. But what I've learned now, man, is now I don't have these little chit chat bullshit conversations about, what quarterback got drafted. I really get to have these cool conversations and really connect with people on a much deeper level and understand and learn about them, as opposed to some fake chit chat where I could care less and we talk about it the same time next week and the same time next week. And at the end of I literally have lost 95% of my friends, not because they were bad dudes, but because we just don't have the same values anymore. Do I think any less of them? Absolutely
no, and
not.
That pack gets so big when you're at, all the different clubs and stuff like that. Like, you probably had a shitload of people in your life that you talked to.
Yeah. And you know what? And the people I have now, man, are just quality individuals, and I can be real with them and they can be real with me, and we enjoy each other's company. I mean, I'm not saying to have a ton of friends is a bad thing at all, but having a few really quality friends, man, is way more important to me.
You talk about the tour again. You're very humble. You kind of like go right over it. You had you not many people walking around the planet can say they won a tour event. You did, in 2012, and you did it at the time. You're still pretty. You're going pretty hard. And what was that? What was that experience like? Because you had an episode. And this happens to golfers. You see it every so often, because I think the pressure is just so incredible that you guys deal with. You're by yourself. I think it's all about getting out of your head and stuff. And you dealt with anxiety, but you still played through it and won a tournament. Walk us through what the heck that was like, and how drinking kind of wove its way in there.
I think first of all, I'll just walk you through the week real quick, but. It's the last tournament of the year. I got to make $300,000 to keep my job. I just had my son 2 months ago. I'm a rookie on the tour, and I'm like, holy cow, I worked my whole life to get here. I have my son, and if I don't finish solo third this week or better, I'm going to lose my job. Then what? So I go out the first day, play a really solid round of golf, shoot like 3 or 4 under, go back to the hotel room by myself. Like you said, probably, at that time, probably just had 12 or 15 beers. It was an easy night, and I come back the next day and I'm with my caddy on the putting green. I'm kind of feeling a little funky. And so we're walking to the driving range and I light up a cigarette, and this is before Tom Watson. And we're walking and I'm taking a drag, and I look at my caddy and I said, something's wrong. I said, my heart's beating, man. And I really don't feel good. So he called the paramedics over. And at this time I didn't know what anxiety was, didn't know what a panic attack was, nothing like that. So they called the paramedics over. My blood pressure's through the roof. I'm sweating, but I'm like, dude, I have to play. And especially after playing, I was like in 6th or 7th place after the first round. So I tee off, I eagle the first hole, I birdie the second hole, I birdie the third hole. I shoot like 30 on the front 9, man. And, the saying, beware the sick or hungover golfer, that's what I was. I didn't even realize what I was doing, because literally my heart was beating and I literally thought I was going to have a heart attack. But I couldn't quit. So I just kept going. So at the turn, they called the paramedics back. Paramedics come. My blood pressure is like 210 over like 160, something ridiculous. They're like, you got to quit. I'm like, well, I can't quit. I think I had a couple Snickers bars and a banana. Go to the back. all of a sudden, I make a few more birdies. All of a sudden, the TV cameras start showing up, so my heart starts beating more. The next thing I know, I'm having to sit down and lay down in the middle of the fairways in between shots because I'm shaking so bad that I can't stand up. My caddy's just trying to figure out, Handlebar at the time, he was in his 60s, never won on the tour, but had been out there 30 years. So I was kind of doing it for both of us. I get through the round. I make like a 5-footer for par on the last hole. I shoot 64. I'm leading the golf tournament. I go into the scoring and I just start, actually, as soon as I made the par putt, before I even pulled it out of the hole, I just start crying because the relief that I got through the day. And now I knew that I could go to the hospital and see what was wrong. And, so I go in, I'm crying. All my buddies are coming up to me. Great playing. They see I'm crying. They're like, what's going on? The next thing I know, the ambulance backs up. The TV cameras are in the scoring. They put me on the stretcher. They take me to Arnold Palmer's hospital. I go through every test imaginable until like 5 a.m. the next day. Still got my golf shoes on at 5 a.m. They tell me I'm good to go, but I can't go play. Well, I looked at my agent, Andy Dawson, who was sitting with me. I said, well, we're playing golf, man. I don't have a choice. I'm leading this golf tournament. I have to keep my job. I just had my son. So they told me, his anxiety or panic attack. They then give me a bottle of Xanax. So I didn't even know what Xanax was.
So this is your first experience with that stuff?
This is my first experience. So then I go out Saturday and they're like, take one of these before you play and maybe one at the turn. Well, I'm not a real big pill guy. I had some problems with that in college. And so I only take a half a pill, but dang, I felt good. I felt like Charlie. I felt normal. So we make the turn. I go in the porta potty because at this time, I don't even know if Xanax is legal on tour.
Yeah.
I go into the porta potty. I take another half of Xanax for the back nine. I get done and feeling great. I think I've got like a 2-shot lead. And so me and my agent, we go to this steakhouse there in Orlando, and we're sitting at the bar, and I'm hammering Bacardis, man. It's like, you think you would learn, dude. Like, you just were in the hospital. Now you're taking Xanax, but you feel good enough that we might as well pound some Bacardis. And this guy sitting next to us, they end up putting me on TV and they're talking about it. And this guy he's like, can you believe this guy? It's just amazing what he's done. And he doesn't have the connection yet. And I said, hey, I think I know that guy. And he looked at me and he looked at the TV and I still stay in contact with him because it was such a moment, man, that this guy's telling me about how incredible my story is and how tough I am. And he's actually talking to me, and so it was pretty cool. But yeah, man, I go through and I ended up winning the golf tournament, keeping my job, and now I've got a 2-year exemption. I've got money for the first time ever in my pocket, and then things really went downhill because once you get in, there's a club for being on the PGA Tour, and then there's a bigger club if you're a winner on the PGA Tour, and then there's even a bigger club if you're a major winner. So now I'm included in this the second to best club that there is. I'm getting invited to things that I never even knew existed. And I just started turning it up more and more and more to the point where it was the only thing that mattered to me. Like I said, I would shoot a few airplane bottles if it got really bad, but come like hole 5 or 6, if I wasn't like under par or even par, like I was like, all right, when can we get out of here so I can quit drinking? And I became the king of withdrawing after 18 holes in one round because I was like, I'm out of it. I want to, spend the next 3 days getting blasted. And it's just, I worked my whole life to get there. And it's so sad that when I got there, that's how I treated it. But you know what? I wouldn't be the person here that I am today if I didn't go through that. So do I regret any of it? Absolutely not. I had the most incredible experiences and great time, but that's behind me. And the person I am now, man, I wouldn't trade for anything.
Charlie, you look different. I mean, like there's a remarkable difference in who you were, unhealthy, out there on the tour, super anxious, Xanax hitting it at the turn, to the guy you are now. And just talking to you, it's the real deal how it just shoots through you.
Yeah, man. So I've, people talk about my energy and I really just want to help people and be that nice, friendly guy. I've lost 80 pounds. I was a little pissed off that we had to do 9:45 because you cut into my gym time. So, I'm dedicated to the gym and I enjoy, and I don't do anything, people are like, what golf program? I'm like, I don't lift for golf, buddy. I'm trying to lift some heavy weights, throw them around, but I'm in there every day just for my mental health. Me looking better and feeling better is just a byproduct of it all. But, instead of now thinking about the booze and that, I think about, the food that I'm going to put in my body and stuff like that. So 80 pounds I've lost. I've kicked all the medication. No more popping Xanax like chiclets. No more taking all the depression medication, anything like that. I'm off all that bullshit. And that stuff is just straight poison. If people are on that, these doctors, and sorry to get into this, but
no,
doctors,
it's totally cool. It's your story.
And those pills they're just as dangerous. And thank the Lord, as soon as I learned how Heath Ledger and Whitney Houston died, because I was the guy that would have all that booze and then be like, oh, let's take a Xanax before we go to bed so I get a good night's sleep. Well, that's exactly how those people died, man. And once I learned that, I'm like, I got to get rid of this stuff. But yeah, I'm a different person. I'm a better person. And if anything, like, here's the craziest thing is, since I was like 10 years old, I worked my whole life to get to the PGA Tour. Didn't even really consider winning on the PGA Tour. Here I knock out all those things, my childhood dreams, and I'd never been more empty and depressed and miserable in my entire life. When everybody else thought I was doing fantastic and achieving my dreams, I'd never been more alone and disgusted in my life. And now I got rid of all of that. The booze, the golf, and everything like that, which I thought is what made me happy. And now I've never been happier, and I don't have any of that in my life. Yes, the golf, I play 4 or 5 days a week. I teach some lessons. So it's still a very big part of my life. I went down to Chile 2 weeks ago for the Corn Ferry Tour. Would I love to play some events and maybe get back out there? Yes. But I'd love to get out there to share my story on the bigger platform to help people. I don't give a shit about golf. I could really care less. I'm not interested in the money. But if I could reach more people with that bigger platform, that's why I still want to stay relevant. And that's why guys like you and all these other people even reach out to me in the first place, because I achieved this really cool thing that people look up to. And maybe that's why God gave me the golf first, and this now is because otherwise people wouldn't have listened, So I just try to kind of figure out, what I'm supposed to be doing, why I'm in the position that I'm in, and I just try to make the most of it.
Yeah, I like 100% and vibing with you there. Like, your experience has already garnered you a place to talk, right? And for people want to hear your story, and it can only grow and grow. I don't think, and you're in it for the right stuff. Like, I don't think it matters how much success you have at golf. Your story is amazing. Now the more success, if you were to make some incredible comeback, which I can tell you got it in you. I can tell. That would even be make for a larger platform, which is pretty cool. When you're on the tour and you're sort of spiraling a little bit, anybody try to pull you aside and say, hey, like, anybody say, like, we're noticing this, like, your behavior or anything like that?
I would say when I was about 22 or 23, I mean, for a decade, I had very close, important people to me saying, hey, you're going down the wrong path. You got to stop. But when you're in that position, man, you don't care what they have to say. You think you can control it. You think you're fine. Don't tell me that I'm doing things wrong when I'm winning on the PGA Tour, was my mind. And so I didn't listen, man. My mom begged me forever because she saw me going down the path, this Steve Dallas guy. I mean, I had friends that were telling me, so I had really great people around me. I just wasn't willing to listen, man, until I hit what was my rock bottom. Everybody's rock bottom is different, but at the same time, we're all at the rock bottom. And that's when I kind of turned things around. But, the more people I deal with through this, you can tell them all you want, man, and you can tell them your sad story and how you don't want them to be there. But unfortunately, in this addiction process, it seems like the majority of people got to crash and burn before they want to turn things around. It
sucks, but it's true. I mean, and you see it happen before your eyes, and it's a rough deal. You saw your mom get better before your eyes, and you were still out there drinking. What did that look like to you? Because I had, but both my brothers got sober before I got sober, right? Because we have it in my family. It's the last club we wanted to be a part of, Charlie, but there we were, and now how great is it now? But at first you're like, I do not want that. I don't want to stop. I love what I'm doing. But I saw that they were happy, and I saw like, oh, well, that's interesting. And I sort of kept it in my back pocket. Did you have a similar experience like that, like looking at your mom and seeing her? Because you saw her, you took the wine glass out of her hand so it wouldn't break. And now I would imagine she's done a 180 and she's got the glow, right?
She has the glow, man. And she had the glow from day one. She got caught drinking and driving. You know, the legal limit's what, 0.08. My mom blew a 0.36, almost 4 times the legal limit, passed every sobriety test.
Wow.
The most miserable human at the time. And now, I mean, I go to the gym today, I go anywhere, and everybody always asks me, hey, how's your mom? Because she got that infectious, bubbly, you know, great attitude. And so, yes, I saw that as I was going down and watching her go up, and she was trying to pull me with her. But I didn't understand it at the time. I understand it now more than ever because I was that miserable asshole. And now, man, since I've quit 41 months ago yesterday, my life has gone nothing but straight up. Yes, I still have the occasional bump in the road. Yes, I still find myself sitting in the damn liquor store parking lot thinking about it and saying, you know what, I don't think I can get through this one. But I sit there for a while and I'm like, you cannot throw away what you have now for a few good hours. And plus, I'm too afraid of a hangover. I was so good, I never even had a hangover. People be like, oh, I got a hangover. I'm like, what is that? And now I'm afraid of that. But more importantly, I'm afraid to become the person that I was, which was the person that I wanted to be. And now I'm the person that I want to be. And there's nothing that could ever, you know, get in the way of that, especially when it comes to the booze. But I've never, the people that I help, the people that I don't help, that I've watched turn their life around, I have never seen one person get sober and say, this sucks. This is worse. I want to go back to drinking. Everybody's like, dang, man. And what makes me most sad is the time that I wasted, because we can't get time back. It's the most precious commodity we have. More than money, more than anything else is time. But instead of dwelling on that time, now I just tried to take the time that I do have and spread it across whoever I can to give back more. And not that I'm trying to make up for lost time, but I realize.
Dude, I run into the same stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I sometimes feel like I got to gas it because I wasted so much time. But it's been told to me, like, the time that we say we quote unquote wasted now has us uniquely qualified to help somebody else. I mean, you're almost like in a weird way. And I always try to like watch the way I phrase this because I don't want to offend doctors, but it's almost like you're a surgeon in a sense. Like, you have a skill that you can help somebody with your coaching and what you're doing for people personally on the inside that other people just simply don't have the experience and qualifications to do.
And unfortunately, the experience and the qualifications you don't really want those. But yes, you're absolutely right. We have been down that road. We have suffered. We have learned to make the change. And so, yeah, we do have qualifications that you can't put a price on. You can't go to school to get the qualifications and the experience that we have. Unfortunately, you got to learn the hard way, man. And most things in life, the best way to learn is the hard way. And I'm the king of the hard way. My wife, boy, she tries to save me from so many mistakes, but I'd rather go make them by myself, you know, like most of us. But you put it very well. We have a unique set of skills that qualifies us to talk about and do what we're doing.
You mentioned, you know, therapy has been huge for you. Did you ever do any kind of program or meetings like that, or just write the therapy?
Well, I wouldn't say therapy. I never went to therapy for drinking, man. I tried to take my life in college because of drinking and pills, like I had mentioned. And so I still go see a lady, you know, every few weeks and talk about it, but nothing about the drinking. I was, like I said, luckily for me, I was the on-off switch kind of guy. I'd said finally said that I was going to stop and did stop. But for me, I found some guys on YouTube that I really liked. And, you know, I was the guy at 4:30. That's when I could have my first drink. I would start shaking at, you know, 3:45 or 4 o'clock because I needed it. And so at 4:30, I put on YouTube and I started for what would be a mile walk and sometimes turn into 6 miles, sometimes be 3. And that's just kind of how I got it. And then after a couple of weeks, I'm like, dude, I'm not having to wake up and apologize for things that I don't remember. I mean, I would wake up in the morning, my wife would have a list on my nightstand of who I needed to call, what I said, and why I need to apologize. I didn't have any of that. I felt so much better. I had so much more time. I think the hardest thing for people getting sober is sitting there with all that time in your thoughts, because you really figure out who the hell you are. We can always be in a good mood when we catch that buzz and then pass out and we don't have to deal with it. But when all of a sudden you're used to drinking, you know, from 4:30 to however long you go, and now you're sitting there with your own thoughts and understanding the person that you are and thinking about where you were. I think that's the hardest part of sobriety, because people don't know how to fill their time with something constructive, because we're so used to filling it with poison and what we thought was a good time.
Well, you mentioned you brought up something that was like that kept me drunk for a long time. It's the fear of stuff that really doesn't exist. Like, how am I going to do X, Y, and Z? What do you tell people now that say that to you, like, oh, I need to have a drink at my daughter's wedding in 15 years, or how am I going to go to these events? Even guys that aren't, successful golfers, successful people that are always out at big dinners and stuff like that.
Well, I'm going to tell you at first, it sucks. It's not enjoyable, It is not enjoyable going to those things, but that's what, like you said, that's what pushed me. So I'm like, how can I go to this dinner? How can I go to this function? I'll push it off till next week. Then another dinner and that comes up. Well, if that's your excuse, then you're going to keep going down that path. So you just have, you're going to go and you're going to feel a little socially awkward for sure. I was Mr. Outgoing. Then I'd go to these dinners and that. And, my mouth wasn't always constantly running because I had a buzz and thought I had something to say. Instead, I started doing a lot more listening and started learning a lot more and started understanding people and where they were actually coming from, instead of it being just about me, me, me. And I was the guy that we'd go to dinner and the waiters couldn't get it there fast enough. So I would order 3 Bud Lights at a time. Mm-hmm. And I would hammer those 3 and then I'd order 3 more because I never wanted to wait for that drink, man. And so then all of a sudden, I'd go to these deals and I would get a Diet Coke in a short glass with a lime. Still the same thing I do if I go to a nice dinner. I get crushed ice, short glass, Diet Coke with a lime. The only thing I'm missing is the Bacardi, but at least it gives me that little satisfaction to sip on it. And then more importantly, now I'm to the point where I don't care. But if you do something like that at the beginning, then people aren't asking you, as opposed to carrying around a Diet Coke can when everybody else has a drink in their hand. They're not asking you, how come you're not drinking, blah, blah, blah. So you can avoid all that just by, whatever it is that your drink is, you make it look like that and you just do it. But it's not easy, man. I'm just going to tell you, it's not easy going to those things for a while. Like I said, it took me a year and a half to get over that. And it wasn't that I thought people were judging me for not drinking, or I thought I was making people uncomfortable because I wasn't the same person that I was. In reality, they didn't even care. It was those things that we think about ourselves that we portray and we think that other people are thinking, when in reality, they don't care. And what I've really learned through all this is, like, 99% of these people that you think care or thought care, they don't care one bit, They could care less, for sure. They're more interested in them and what you can do for them or what they can do for you, not necessarily in a good way. And you learn that when you sit and listen, man, and you observe, because now you're coherent and you're present and you're there, and you'd be like, dude, I really thought this guy or girl was a different person. And now I'm like, wait a second here. I'm questioning who I thought they were and who their character is, because now I'm in the right state of mind to do so, But it, like I said, it's not easy, but nothing in life worth having is easy. But I'm going to tell you, if 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you will see a substantial difference in your life. And you'll be like, dude, this feels really good. And then you might fall back and have that drink or two, and you wake up and you're like, man, I made a lot of bad decisions. My body isn't working. I don't feel as good as I do. And then for me, that was kind of it. I was like, dude, I feel good. And now I wake up every day. I'm like, yeah, I've got a bounce in my step, as opposed to my head down, walking to the kitchen like, oh, how am I going to get through the day,
Yeah, how am I going to get through it? And I would imagine one of the things that you're not, quote unquote, getting through anymore, and I'm not saying you ever totally were, but your relationship with your wife and your kids and your family, like, how much more has the strong ties that you've bonded with them, how much more has that assisted in who you are as a person?
It's exactly who I am. I would do anything for my wife and my son. They are the number one priority. I don't miss any practices. Like, when I sit there and I'll never coach my kids' team. I watch too many parents ruin it for their kids, not only in golf and stuff like that. So I do not coach my son at all, but I do not miss a practice. I do not miss a game. I'm the only parent there at practice. And I think back, I'm like, dude, I used to Uber to my son's practices with a cooler. That's how ridiculous it was, man. But now, I mean, like, I can't wait as soon as we're done, I'm wrapping up. I had 5 people that wanted lessons today. I'm doing 1 lesson because my kid gets out of school early, and then we're going to play some pickleball or do something, as opposed to before. Like, I'd be like, oh, you're getting out of school early today. Maybe your mom can pick you up so I can play golf. And and get smashed, and then I'll come home and see you and put you to bed. And that was kind of the dad that I was, unfortunately. But now, man, I don't miss a thing of his, whether it's driving him across town for a physical therapy or I want to be a part of it all. And, I used to have this thought about, my wife, not that, let me think how I'm going to say this. Not that I ever thought she was with me for the wrong reasons or anything like that. But as soon as I quit drinking, going back to like us being at these dinners and that and not drinking, I really understood how big her heart was and what kind of woman she was, and that she only cared about our family. And there's nothing I wouldn't do for this family. And if anybody threatened it, I'd be the first one to step in. I hate to say this, man, but it went from my last priority to my first priority, man. And there's no second priority that's even close to it. So it has become my family has become what drinking was to me. Drinking was everything. My family was nothing. Now my family is everything, and drinking is nothing.
How has your relationship with golf changed?
I look at I'm smiling, man. I used to dude, I was on the tour living everybody's dream, and I hated every second of it. I hated having to do these functions. I hated having to play golf. I hated it being in front of these people. And now, man, my buddies call me. I rarely say no to going out and playing. And it's just now that I don't fight the depression, I don't fight the anxiety. I don't care about my score. My game has actually never been better than it is right now, which is why I kind of have that urge to get back out there. And do it and test it sober. I've never played the PGA Tour sober, man. Like I did it as a full and so I kind of want to see what I can do. But to be honest, I hate the traveling. I really enjoy being home. I couldn't imagine being away from my boy 25 or 30 weeks a year. That's one of the reasons why I couldn't do it. And yeah, it'd be cool to bring him out one or two. But like even when I was in Chile 2 weeks ago and my wife is FaceTiming me from his baseball game, the only place I wanted to be was at his baseball game. I didn't care that I was in Chile, had an opportunity. I wanted to be at home. So that's the hardest part for me now. But now, like, I go to these golf courses. I have no pressure because I don't care what anybody thinks about what I shoot, which actually results in lower scores. But now I look at golf courses and I appreciate the golf courses for what they are. And I try to look at the architecture and see why they design the holes where they do. Is before I was like, get me through this, man. There's a pot of gold, meaning a big bottle of Bacardi at the end of my round. Get me through this so I can get there. And now I don't care. Like, I really enjoy playing fast. Like if it's over 3.5 hours, like I start to struggle, but if it happens to be 4.5, man, I can kick back, enjoy the sunshine, the clouds, and enjoy the day as opposed to like, what am I doing? I hate this, get me out of here. I've just learned to enjoy the game and appreciate this talent that I had been given. And I just enjoy it now, man. I really thoroughly do. But and then at the same time, not to get onto another subject, but I think the PGA Tour and the commissioner are pretty pathetic right now, and the way golf in general. Yeah. And the way golf is going, I just think it is a bad place for golf, made by bad decisions at the leadership level. And in my personal opinion, it's pathetic that the players haven't band together and got this together, because it's our tour. These people work for us. But unfortunately, we're in a society right now where everybody just kind of wants to do what they're told because they're afraid of any backlash or standing up for what they believe in. And I opened up 4 or 5 courses, or not 4 or 5, 2 or 3 courses with Greg Norman. I called and begged him for a spot. He told me, you know what, Charlie, sorry, but you don't have the pedigree we're looking for. I can totally understand that. But right now, man, I mean,
but you would be totally open, obviously, to playing on the Live Tour.
Oh, 1,000%. I'd be open to playing on any tour, man. But unfortunately, I don't think people. And sorry to veer off.
No, this is all, dude. I'm a sports guy, so
like here's how this is going to go. Just so I can tell you and your followers, there's going to be a Live World Tour where the 60 best players are going to play, and they're going to be able to play. They're going to have to play their 12 tournaments. They're going to then be able to play the 4 majors. And then if John Rahm, a Phoenix guy like this, wants to play the Phoenix Open or Torrey Pines, he can. But the PGA Tour is going to be a feeder tour for the Live Tour. And people said, oh, the Live Tour is only going to be here for a year or so, whatever. Guess what? They're still here. They're getting bigger. They're not plucking off guys that you don't know. They're plucking off major champions, top-notch guys, one after another. And these guys, they're in all these talks. Not only are they getting big money, but they know the roadmap ahead. And unfortunately, these guys, I'm not knocking guys that didn't take the money, and I'm not knocking guys that did take the money. But guys like Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, Billy Horschel, these guys that all wanted to stay loyal or whatever, they're going to be playing in the same exact spot, and they missed out on a couple $100 million payday. That's how it's going to go, because oil money is not going to stop. Yeah. They have the players. You can't sit here and tell me that the best players in the world are on the PGA Tour. That's just not the truth. We're 3 years.
Who would ever thought we'd see that?
Ever. Nobody ever. Their monopoly has been toppled, and now guys want to travel the world in the way that Liv's doing it, with chartered planes and all this other stuff. Yes, I understand that 3 rounds of golf and a shotgun start are not ideal, and that will probably have to change, and I think it will. Just like they're going to land a massive TV contract deal, and when they do, it's a game changer. Just like how there's been some sponsors leaving on the PGA Tour. Nobody wants to fork up $20 or $30 million to have a leaderboard with nobody's name on it. Yeah. So I'm not knocking the tour. I'm saying that, listen, you guys had an opportunity to bring this together. Instead, you wanted to keep your monopoly going, and unfortunately, now you're just self-destructing, and it's hurting everybody. Tiger Woods changed the game. He made it cool. He made everybody interested. Brought a lot of people together. Phil Mickelson changed the game in another way. He brought a lot more money, and everything that dude has said is 100% true. He has not said one thing that has not come true. And so for me, I thoroughly enjoy just watching the debacle unfold. And I know that, there's diehard PGA Tour guys. I was the diehard PGA Tour guy, but listen, I'm a realist. It's a business. You're
entitled
world.
to your opinion, and it's based on a lot of experience.
Money talks, and at the end of the day, if you go to those PGA Tour players, Pat Perez and I always have this talk. We play the PGA Tour in that for the money. That's why we play. We don't play for the love of the game. If you want to play for the love of the game, turn amateur, go win the U.S. Amateur, play in the Walker Cup. But don't tell me you play the PGA Tour for the love of the game, because you're straight lying. You play it for the money. Just like these guys in the NBA, the NFL, if there wasn't those big contracts, guess what? They wouldn't put their bodies and their time and all that through it, at least not for the amount of time they do. But at the end of the day, it's a business. We're trying to earn a living. We're doing it for the money, whether you want to say.
Let me ask you one more question on this topic. Has the damage been done? Like, is there, you know what I'm saying?
I think the damage has been done. And I think unless Monahan changes his tune, it's only further going to damage, because Live is not going away. It's only going to get bigger and bigger, and they're going to sign more stars and more people. And unless the tour changes their tune, they're going to self-destruct, and they are going to push the players to Live versus the Live or the players wanting to stay with the tour because they see a future ahead. In my eyes, there's a 12 tournament world tour that the 60 best players are going to play. They're going to play the 4 majors, and if they want to play a couple other weeks at some of their favorite spots, cool, they might. But in my opinion, the PGA Tour is now a feeder tour for the Live Tour.
Amazing insight. Last question as it relates to sobriety. What do you tell somebody that you're coaching through a life situation that says, hey, Charlie, I cannot stop drinking, but I want to stop?
I think it's different for everybody, but everybody that comes to me and says, I can't stop drinking, my life sucks, it's horrible, it's miserable, what can I do? I try to give them the tools, and they come back to me a week later and they're like, I couldn't make it. You're literally, and this is my favorite quote, and I think I made it up maybe, but you're literally one decision and a little bit of discipline away from changing your life. And like I said earlier, change is very difficult. It's hard. It's uncomfortable, but the reward at the end, like I thought I was living the dream, playing the tour and doing that, man, only to look now back and see how miserable I was and how sad I was and how depressed I was. Like, there is literally a whole nother life, a way better life, a way happier life, a way everything. Your life will only propel straight up if you make the decision and have a little bit of discipline and go through a little bit of discomfort, man. A world awaits you that you doesn't even know exist. One decision, a little bit of discipline away.
I've never heard that. I love it. One decision, a little bit of discipline. Charlie Beljan, dude.
That's it.
You're the man.
Hey, thank you, man. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was awesome. I'll send you a link of this when it goes up. It'll probably go up next week. But dude, I so appreciate it, man.
Absolutely, man.
All right, brother.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for your time. And if you ever need anything in the future, or you're ever in Phoenix or I'm ever in Waco, I'll reach out.
You got it, brother. Thanks a lot, Charlie.
All right, have a good one.
You too. Thanks so much for listening to the Payoff with Pete. Once again, I'm Pete Souza. And of course, we are part of the Rogue Media Network. All kinds of good podcasts you can find at roguemedianetwork.com. And of course, you can find this podcast and all those other ones wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, other spots like that.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.